Hi guys, so today I am doing a review of Hidden and Dangerous 1. I actually did a Hidden and Dangerous 2 review previously.
Primary goal, to free captured pilot.
So I bought this from Good Old Games. It's called Hidden and Dangerous Action Pack. Because it's from Good Old Games, they've adapted it so that it'll work on modern PCs. So you've got Windows Vista 7, 8 and 10. It was originally released in January 2000. It's just 691 MB, so quite easy to install. Today's machines: Illusion Softworks and 2K Games. So it's a mix of third and first person shooting, but like in Dangerous 2, it's got a very strong strategic element. There are many different ways to do all the missions. For instance, there's a mission in streets, a street level, where you're in, I think it's occupied France. They say the gendarmes are out looking and stuff. So basically, on this level there is the potential to stir up a so to say hornet's nest of opposition. That is, if you're careless enough to just wade in all guns blazing. Now, if you're careful, in the briefing before this mission, it says you can use civilian clothes.
The mission starts here. Although we are dressed in German uniforms, we cannot rely on this disguise for too long. It is a question of time before our cover is blown, so we have to move fast and decisively, using the shortest route to get to the car park and to take over the armoured vehicle, which will provide us with protection against enemy fire. We complete the mission by exiting the vehicle on the pathway.
The game is, let me just explain a bit better. The game is set into 4 or 5 different campaigns, or mini campaigns. Each campaign has about either 4 or 5 missions. I'm not sure exactly, but you get the idea. Yeah, so basically all the gear carries on from the next mission, and if you end up getting your team killed, you have less talent pool to choose from. And even through campaigns, like if you get a lot of deaths, you end up with a lot of raw recruits rather than experienced veterans to pick from. So back to the point I was making. Yeah, so on these this mission, I actually worked out that all you have to do basically is come along the promenade. Once you've got the civilian clothing, the Germans will kind of point their guns at you, but they generally don't shoot unless you're like kind of wandering around right in front of them being stupid. So I worked out you could just use 2 men, get the civilian clothes. You didn't have to walk. There was a car, there's a vehicle that you can you know, action button's going to come in handy here, the U key. So I got in the vehicle. Once I got the civvy clothes, I drove off. It was like one German on the dock, killed him quietly with a knife, jumped in the boat, and sayonara. And as I said, I could have done that with like, you know, yippee-ki-yay, die-hard fashion, but I chose the sort of smart route. And that's just one small example. There are like so many ways you can get around missions. You know, there's one where you can kind of like, if you're careful, you can just sort of follow a river rather than traversing land filled with mines. Now this is a wonderful game for all this detail. It kind of comes from golden era of gaming, before everything was kind of spelled out for you. The briefings are very detailed, and there's always secondary objectives or like other things that you have to take into consideration, other factors. So like listening really carefully in the objective screen, or rewatching it. You press F1 to rewatch it. It's very sometimes important. Like if you listen carefully, like small details can even have quite a big effect. So it differs to Hidden and Dangerous 2 in that it's a bit earlier. The graphics aren't quite so good, but my feeling is that they've been overhauled somewhat for this Good Old Games remake. I mean, they're not much different. I think maybe just a bit clearer, or it might be due to my newer PC. They're fairly basic, but who cares really? This game is not really about graphics as much. So yeah, probably one of the biggest criticisms I have with Hidden and Dangerous series is that the enemy tend to be like a little bit too strong in places. So once they see you, sometimes they will just shoot you out of nowhere. You won't see it coming because like you've got like probably less than half a second to react. And then alternatively, on the other side, sometimes you will kind of come up to an enemy, and he will be like wandering around looking at his feet when you're right next to him. So that kind of can balance itself out. On one hand, you sometimes get AI that will just shoot you like that, whereas other times they will be stupid, and you're kind of like, yes, if they do that, because it's so hard. It's actually true though that if the enemy weren't at least a little bit more difficult, as they are, you could just wade through the missions a little bit too easy. So even though it's annoying sometimes, it's probably good that the enemy are not completely hapless. And that said, what is less defensible is glitches. This game does have a few glitches, as per usual with these old sort of early 2000s games. Sometimes German soldiers will appear out of thin air. You will hit triggers at the wrong time. I actually had at one point some enemy soldiers spawn without weapons, so you get used to it, but it's all part of the charm really. The only time that really annoyed me was when the whole thing froze and I had to cancel the app via my task manager.
Stop!
It's a really good game, and because it's the first one, I think it's probably a little bit easier. I've played to sort of the third campaign part, so I'm nearly finished, but so far like all the missions are a tad bit easier than the newer one. Obviously the developers would have been a bit jaded by then. They would probably have wanted to put a challenge in, and Hidden and Dangerous 2, there's one mission that springs to mind is when you're in Japan, you're trying to get up this hill during a sort of battle. Oh boy, is that hard, So I think like that's good as well. This one's slightly easier to play, and yeah, it's just an awesome game. It's got a lot of small details, totally ahead of its time. Genius game really. It doesn't cater for idiots. It doesn't tell you everything that you know. You got to work it out yourself. Well, so what? You got an IQ plus past room temperature. You can do it. Don't worry. And don't be disheartened if you lose, because like I said, the game can be very hard. So I use a lot of quick save, quick load to deal with that. Although obviously you don't be saving all the time, because it sort of like feels like you're cheating a little bit. So yeah, overall, you know, another really solid hidden and dangerous game, you know, and from a lot kind of earlier era. But if you can look past dodgy visuals and some kind of slightly glitchy AI, you've got another really solid game. I will give it a score, kind of taking into account the age, so like when this was first released, and I think there are not too many games like this I could think of. Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six are kind of similar, as is SWAT actually. Yeah, SWAT. But in this, even within this genre, or just general tactical games, this one's got to be right up there. I mean, it's got to be in the top 50 all time for sort of you know, FPS sort of strategy games. And yeah, it's just one big adventure. So you know, really good fun. Double thumbs up by me, and taking into account its age, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Follow me!